City Commission workshop for June 9th, 2025. If I can please have the city clerk call the roll.
Commissioner Bill Vasquez.
Present.
Commissioner Colwell.
Here.
Commissioner Hamilton.
Here.
Commissioner Lowry.
Here.
Commissioner Santiago. Vice Mayor Harriet. Mayor Villa.
Here. This time, if we can please stand for the pledge, and I will ask Commissioner Lully if he can lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'd like to call a point of order. Huh?
You look so far away.
That's okay.
So lonely.
What is your point of order, Commissioner Howington?
I'd like to add a section for additions for this meeting.
We can't do that.
Actually, I was told by our attorney that we could.
We can add an item for discussion if the commission votes to amend the agenda. They would have to vote to amend the agenda.
What is the discussion that you want to add?
I would like to put forth a motion for a temporary moratorium.
We're in the middle of a workshop. We can't do motions.
It would be a discussion on moratorium or temporary moratorium.
It would be direction to the city staff and attorneys to move forward. And this is based on the information that Zach gave me on Friday.
Yeah, you all can add a discussion item, so you can't pass a resolution tonight,
Right.
but you all can have a discussion, and at the end of the discussion, just like the last workshop, you can say, come back with an ordinance for us to review, and that would have to be for a vote, or come back with a resolution for us to review, and that would have to be a vote. But if the majority of this body wants to add another topic for discussion, you can, and then you can have that discussion.
If your motion is to have a discussion about a moratorium, I would second that, if that's your motion.
So this full paper is your motion?
Correct.
Is there a time certain for this?
Yes, it will be time certain, based on one of two criteria. So you have the first criteria with the 9 months, or until the second bullet there.
City Attorney, can we proceed or no?
So you can proceed. It's just important that you're not voting to take action. You're voting to add this discussion topic to the agenda. And in the course of your discussion, if the majority of you give direction to bring something back for you to vote on, that would be perfectly acceptable. You just can't vote on the thing tonight. You can't vote on a moratorium tonight. You can't vote on an ordinance or resolution. But you can vote to put a discussion topic on to discuss this topic.
And I did run this past Zach and Gemma prior.
Okay. Can you please call roll?
Go ahead.
Commissioner Bill Vasquez.
Yes.
And I can't hear the city clerk, just thank you.
Commissioner Colwell.
Yes.
Commissioner Howington.
Yes.
Commissioner Lowry.
Yes.
Mayor Villa.
Yes.
Okay.
All right.
So can I make my motion now?
You already did. That's what we just did.
Yes, we just voted.
Well, but I'd like for people who are here to hear what the motion is, because they did not hear it.
Go ahead, Commissioner.
I move to direct city staff and the city attorneys to draft an ordinance and hold a public hearing regarding the authorization of a temporary moratorium on the issuance of development orders and development permits for development of townhomes, cluster homes, and multifamily residential dwelling units, residential development on lots less than 1 acre, residential development over one dwelling unit per acre on any property located within the city. The duration of the moratorium should be the shorter of, and to a date certain, of 9 months, or the time it takes the city commission to enact regulations regarding implementation of all impact fees and determine the impact of new residential development on transportation, police, EMS, and public safety, adequacy of public facilities, recreation and open space, accessibility for emergency and public service vehicular traffic, adequacy of drainage facilities, availability of public infrastructure, including general government facilities like City Hall, roads, trails, sidewalks, solid waste, stormwater, wastewater, and water. And the moratorium ordinance should also provide for exemptions, waivers, and appeals as required by law or as further determined, or actually, I'm striking that part. For the determination of the commission, keep it to as law, if that's all right with everybody else.
I'm going to second that again because it's my interpretation that the first vote that we just did was not for that. And I don't want there to be any ambiguity. So if that's what we're able to move forward with, I would second it again. And I really think we should do another vote.
Okay.
Excuse me, may I ask a question?
Hold on, everyone. Go ahead, Liz.
Yes, Liz.
My question was, I thought this was a motion to add this to the workshop for discussion.
That's what it's for.
Yeah, so my understanding is the first motion and vote that you all took was to add the topic for discussion, and this is Commissioner Howington's discussion topic that she wants to bring forward. Again, you all aren't voting tonight, but you can discuss this. I think she proffered this as the concept that she wants you all to discuss, and then if there's consensus, we would draft an ordinance and bring it back to you. But there just needs to be consensus. But I believe, and Commissioner Harrington, please correct me, but this is what you're proffering as what you would like to discuss and what you would like to see have happen. Again, just like at the last workshop when you guys said, go research the TNR and come back with the TNR, right? Like, that's what
Yeah,
you tell us to do. And then we bring you a product, an ordinance in this case, if you give direction, and then you all would, just like any ordinance, we would, you would have to review it and then pass it by 2 readings. It would be noticed, and you'd have to pass it by 2 readings if you wanted to adopt the ordinance.
Yes, and we've actually walked backwards on the calendar because we are under the gun with SB 180 that everybody keeps mentioning is going to go into effect on July 1st. So with this, what we're doing is we are setting ourselves in a position that if we so choose to elect to have a temporary moratorium, we have dates already kind of outlined. I believe it's June 23rd and June 30th that we would have to meet to put it into place by July 1st. And then if we did that, the portion that people are not discussing right now is Volusia County in 1970 became a home rule charter county.
Point of order, we're adding this to the agenda to be under section B, which is the new added agenda. Let's hold all that conversation for then.
Okay.
Okay, and then one last thing that I will add, the governor hasn't even received SB 180.
That's correct.
So this whole conversation is, and we'll get into that for that discussion, but that's fear-mongering. He hasn't even made a decision if he's going to veto the bill. So let's hold off till we
But
get to that.
everybody keeps acting as if it's going through, so.
I mean, I'm not everyone. I'm sure other people up here don't agree with that, but we'll have the discussion when the time comes. Let's start with the business that's at hand that's been advertised, and then we can get to your points. So business A, public works, utility, and projects.
Excuse me, Mayor, did we have to do another vote, or
Yeah.
the first one was sufficient?
The first one was sufficient. You added the topic about to discuss a temporary moratorium to the agenda.
That's it?
That's it. You've added it.
discussed.
It's now added to the agenda, and you all will be able to discuss it. I
Thank
believe
you.
the mayor said when we get to B.
Public works. Ms. Wallace.
Phyllis Wallace, Public Works. I'm going to,
Ms. Wallace, I think your mic is off.
give me now? Better? I'm green.
I can hear you perfect. It's like direct and
He has a cheat sheet.
I'm green. For ease of clarity, I'm going to follow the agenda, and then we do have a presentation, but I'm going to follow this agenda that we were supposed to cover back at our workshop a few Saturdays ago, and we weren't able to get to this. So let's start with the flooding project citywide. By no means is this a complete list, but it is kind of our highlights, if you will. So we have Elkham Boulevard at Lake Helen Osteen Road, that intersection. We have submitted that for Transform 386, the second phase. Osteen Elementary School on Doyle Road. We know that that's kind of a joint project between the school board, Volusia County, and the city, only because we get the phone calls. Been trying to coordinate a meeting with the parties, including the city, to see what we can do as a joint effort. Lake Sterling. We've looked into how we might be able to do some drawdowns to Lake Sterling so that we can offset the adverse impacts that happen downstream through Hampton Oaks and then on down to the Drysdale area, Elkham Boulevard. That is also a project that I submitted for Transform 386 at the second phase. Home acquisition and demolition. Since Hurricane Ian, we've had no additional submittals from any of our residents regarding that. Blue Heron Stormwater Park, that would be kind of tied with the Sterling Lake drawdown, trying to basically mitigate what's happening there. How can we move water maybe in two directions versus one? How can we improve the downstream impacts so that we can take more water, and then where do we go with that water when it gets to the end? Because there is an ending point, so we need to be mindful of that. That also includes the Drysdale Pond. Once again, I did submit that for Transform 386. Want to bring you up to speed on some of the pipes that you've always seen out during emergencies that we start laying out in advance of storms. Typically, there are 36 locations that we lay out pipes or lay flat hoses, put pumps and start pumping. Of those this year, we have buried 15 of those, so we are way ahead of the game as far as being able to be prepared for the next storm event. That leaves staff with the ability not to have to run around, find pipe, get fittings, get it in, lay it down, and then worry about some of our residents who have in the past decided to undermine our efforts by damaging our infrastructure. So that covers the flooding projects. I also want to bring up that the mayor, along with all of the other mayors in the cities of the city of Deltona, are part of a stormwater subcommittee group. I attend those meetings with the mayor when I'm available, and that is an effort to look at a holistic approach to stormwater, not just the city of Deltona as a standalone, DeBerry as a standalone. How can we work together, because our problems are not unique to strictly Deltona. Problems we have, or other agencies have those problems as well. Stormwater projects. Within your package, you have the list of the nearly $50 million worth of stormwater projects. And I would be remiss if I didn't tell you that the stormwater assessment fee is falling short of us being able to do all of those projects. Finance, we're working together to try to find different funding opportunities, whether that's a bond, whether that's a bank loan, so that we can get some of these projects underway. Of that $50 million, there's approximately 45 projects that we have identified. In the last 8 years, your stormwater crew has completed 51 projects that include pipelining, new infrastructure, upgrades, mitigation. So we are making some headway. By no means are we ahead of the game, but we spend our money wisely, and we are limited with the funds that we have available. Next item was the Hurricane Loss Mitigation Program. That is through the state of Florida. The city of Deltona did not make any applications for that. That was a short window of opportunity for application. There was a very limited funding source available. Only one application per agency, $250,000, and then the period of performance was basically a one-year period. And for us, we don't have any projects that are shovel-ready that would fall under that criteria. I did suggest that the windows for City Hall might fall under that criteria, but I understand that City Hall has already made application through another grant in which to fund those windows, or at least partially those windows replacements. Hazard mitigation grant, that is one that we have applied for, and as you've seen before in my presentation, we have gotten the Catalina Boulevard elevation, we have LCAM, those are both phase ones, where we will get a 75-25 split. City Hall, we just got the notification from the Florida Division of Emergency Management that FEMA has looked favorably upon our whole building generator, and for those that are not familiar, during an event, if we lose power, and we're activated here, this is the only part of the building that has full power. And as somebody who has slept here overnight, when there is no power that runs the rest of the building, with the exception of emergency lights, a little bit of plug-in at outlets, no air conditioning, and you're sharing a space with 100 other staff members in your downtime, you're not getting a whole lot of rest. But it also provides this facility as being a more robust facility, that if we were to have a power outage for any reason, Duke Energy has something that goes wrong, they lose a grid, we can still function and continue our operations here at the city. With HMGP, we helped 7 residents make application for different opportunities through that program. One I did bring back to you, which is a home elevation. We just got the bids on that, so we should be wrapping that up as far as helping that resident start that project. We also, I am presenting to you Monday night for a demolition and rebuilding of a home. So that's good news, and then the rest of them are still in the process. Some of those were bundled, not as individual projects, but with other projects in the hopes that they would have a cost-benefit analysis that was positive. So that's where we are. We have a second round of submittals, which we just tidied up last week, or maybe 10 days ago, for 5 bypass pumps for 5 lift stations, and that request was for $1.5 million. Bypass pumps for 9 pump stations, stormwater pump stations. That's a ask of $2.1 million. And then, believe it or not, folks, when we don't have power, our traffic signals do not work. And we only have so many generators, so we've asked for 15 permanent generators for our traffic signals at an ask of $1.2 million. Now, we had to prioritize those because the funding that was now been allocated has kind of diminished, so we prioritized them with stormwater being a priority, lift stations for sanitary sewer being a second priority, and we're hopeful we'll get those 2 projects, and that is a 75-25 split, so the city could come out very, very positive if we get those grants. That was a total of $4.8 million that we requested. Elevate Florida is a program that is very similar to HMGP, specific for personal homes, residential homes, that the state has decided that they want to undertake that program versus going through the hazard mitigation grant program. The positive to that is there's one less step. The shortcomings for that is our residents don't have an advocate who understands the process maybe a little bit better than they do, and we can't represent them. Now, we'll try to help them any way we can. Any data that they need in their application submittals, we'll try to get that for them, but that is a shortcoming, I think, of the program in general. I am unaware of any of our residents that we've advised of this program, if they've made application or not. I've heard some have tried and have had some difficulties, so. Transform 386, the second round. Just to clarify, our first round, we submitted 2 projects, and the county had determined that those were maintenance, and you can't submit for maintenance projects. So the projects that we applied for this go-around, as I mentioned earlier, the Blue Heron Park Stormwater Pump Station, sanitary sewer lift station elevations. As you know, some of our lift stations were nearly underwater during the storms, and we had to take extraordinary efforts to sandbag around them, so it would be nice to get them elevated outside of the flood zone. I put in for the Elkham Boulevard and the Lake Helen Osteen Road stormwater improvement. We have an ability with a lake that is within the Twin Lake subdivision called Lake Sweet Gum to possibly draw down water from their lake, take it over to one of our or pump stations, and then take that up to the RIP site. So we've made application for Transform 386 with that because that helps us harvest water, and the benefit is if we can capture some water and draw down that lake ahead of time, then some of the problems they've had in the past might be mitigated. And then once again, the Sterling Lake Control Structure and Pump Station. So that totals $4.8 million as well, and that would be, we've put this in as a 50-50 share with Transform 386. We found that the higher percentage that you put in, or certainly more than 10 or 25%, gives you a higher ranking. That's part of the process. So that's where we are with that. And that's it on my agenda that we've covered. And I'm happy to start the presentation to show you some of the projects that we have out there now, if you'd like.
Yeah, and then we have questions from Commissioner Avila Vasquez right after the presentation.
Okay, I messed it up already.
Questions now?
Right after the presentation. But if you want, start getting on the board, because...
Beat the rush.
Huh?
Beat the rush.
Yeah. Commissioner Lely's on there already, so.
Okay, we'll just do it manually. We won't use technical things.
But I
This is a
think
project that is-
Miss Catherine's there as well, so.
The projects that we're going to be going over now are all in-house projects that we anticipate being completed before the end of this fiscal year. This is for Fay Court. We have nuisance flooding on Fay Court, so this should benefit those residents over there where they're not standing in maybe knee-high water at the end of a storm event, whether it's a big storm event or just a regular, downpour that we might get. Same issue over on Diamond Street. For those that aren't familiar, that's off of Deltona Boulevard, and of course you drive in Diamond Street in which to get to one of our fire stations.
Yeah.
And these are not big budgeted items, and that's why they can be done in-house with staff. These are projects that they can do in-house. The Tulsa Drive, Dorchester Drive area, that was greatly impacted during Hurricanes Ian, Nicole, and Milton. So this will help with the runoff and the drainage in that area through an in-house project. And the same thing with Hallover Boulevard. We didn't get a before picture that was actually this visual from this standpoint, but this is over off of Fort Smith, at Fort Smith, near Sandler, that area where the contractor, the Minzy contractor, has been in and has been cleaning up everything out there. So great improvement over there. This is our sandbagging machines that we have, and I do want to bring you up to speed on our anticipation. We are readying to prepare for distribution in the event of a storm. We're going to have 10,000 bags ready to go. And we have decided that we think the location that's going to work for the city as a whole is to set up over at Dewey Boster, because we can bring people in off of Saxon, 2 lanes of traffic, 10,000 bags already ready. Staff will be there to help load those for the residents. And as those bags are being diminished, our team will be restocking those bags, filling those up. As you know, we can do about 1,200 bags a minute. We have two machines, so we can keep up with that, and we think that's going to be a great benefit to our residents and to the staff. It lessens the amount of staff that needs to be there and frees them up to be in other locations. You've seen the listing for the milling and restriping, and we do have quite a bit, but $2 million doesn't go very far. Used to be able to get for $120,000 1 mile of milling and resurfacing, not so much anymore, and the thermoplastic that runs with that is nearly as expensive. So we try to be as frugal and financially prudent with the money and look at areas that maybe there's a road that doesn't meet the criteria that it's 60 below with the pavement condition index, but maybe it's at 68 or 70 and it's next to a road that we're going to do. Economy of scales is I don't have to demobilize somebody to go somewhere else and then bring them back next year. So this is the list of the roads, primary roadways to and from. And new sidewalk installations, I think you've seen this list as well. And our goal is to have 5-foot wide sidewalks everywhere throughout the city that we can. We do run into difficulties with existing sidewalks, with old sidewalks, ADA compliance. Once you start, you may have to go down the street and around the corner in which to end up with a sidewalk that's compliant with ADA. And so these are the new sidewalk installations. And you're familiar with the Teresa Basin study. We are moving. We are on schedule with that project. We have a progress meeting this week, so we can come back in upcoming weeks to brief you on where we are. But they are on schedule, and we do anticipate having a product with their study completed at the end of this year. And that's it for my side of Public Works.
All right, Commissioner Vila Vasquez, you, was that the end of the presentation?
No, he's,
Oh, okay, go ahead. Just let me know when the presentations are over, because I want to make sure that every commissioner has a chance to speak.
So now we get to the utility. All right. So all of the projects that I'm getting ready to discuss are things that are currently underway, currently have already gone before the commission, and have been approved and are almost completed or beginning. The first one I want to talk about is the Fisher project that's currently going on right now. This is a project to reduce the nutrient load under the current configuration that we have to get better nutrient removal to meet some of the requirements that DEP requires us to meet. We've been going through this project now for a little over 13 months. And it's one of those where we have a lot of planning, and all of these projects have a lot of planning going up to them. There's one that we'll talk about that there's been a 16-month lead time for it. But this project currently, we're at 70% complete. The budget was a little over $1.3 million. We've got about $500,000 remaining in it, and we should be finished with it by August 31st of this year. And basically what we're doing is we're changing how the flow goes throughout the tanks so that you get better nutrient removal, which is nitrogen and phosphorus, which is better for the environment and meets the limitations that DEP puts on us to actually, before we can discharge any sort of reclaim, it's got to meet those stringent numbers. That plant was originally built in 1958. It had a kind of a rehab in 1992, so our standards are at 1992 standards, so we're trying to get it halfway in between where we need to before we have to have that full upgrade, which we've begun to discuss and we'll be bringing before the commission for the full kind of upgrade for it. So that's the first project that the utility is going through right now. The second one is still at Fisher, and this is a very small project, but something that I wanted to give to y'all is what this is taking the one of the last parts of the process, which is the filtration. Anybody that's got a pool has a sand filter. And that sand filter, you have to backwash every now and again to make sure that it can filter out anything that's been in the pool, any of the, say for example, your sunscreen that's in there, or any bugs in there that are in there. So we have the same kind of thing. It's the sand filter there, and it needs to be rehabbed. It's not functioning the way that it was in 1992, as you could imagine, right? Well, it's a process that only takes a month to get done, but we've had parts on order for 16 months in order to do this one process that's going to take a relatively small amount of time. The original budget on it was about $388,000. We've spent about $76,000 so far, but we've got $312,000 once they start, which should be in a couple days, and we should be finished by about the 15th of July. And what this is going to do is it's going to give us better filtration, plus it's going to allow us to have more flow go through it so that when we get into the hurricane season, we can allow more water to go through with less potential for there being any sort of substandard water that goes through the plant. So it's a very, very worthwhile project that y'all have allowed us to move forward with. Third one that I want to look at is Cortland Water Plant 11. This is a water plant that is off of Cortland and Fort Smith, and typically our wells for this plant are closer to the Blue Springs Basin. And one of the things that the Blue Springs Basin prohibits us from doing is withdrawing a lot of water, which affects our consumptive use permit, our CUP. So we got approval through this approximately 2.5 years ago. Well, actually, it was longer than that. It was about 4 years ago, to put 2 wells on Roland, which is by that Cortland water plant, so that we can allow water to be withdrawn further away from the Blue Springs Basin and allow us to abandon wells that are closer to the Blue Springs Basin. So we originally sunk wells 41 and 42 on Roland. That was one project which was completed some time ago. And this project is the outfitting of those wells, connecting those wells to our water plant on Cortland so that we can then begin the process of using them and then also abandoning those wells that are closer to Blue Springs. So the impact that this has on us is it takes pressure off of St. John's to further reduce any capacity in our CUP that we have, making it so that we can allow for any sort of progress and any sort of demands that we have through development for commercial or residential. Budget for this was about $2.7 million. We're about 92% complete on this. We should be completed by the last week of June of this year. We're just simply testing the water at this point and making sure that all of the tie-ins and all of the bacteriological samples pass through DEP standards before we're able to actually implement it. Next one I want to talk about is lift station number 7. This is in the Waycross area. This project is to rehabilitate or basically create a new lift station in the same area as the old lift station on Waycross. The reason for this is the lift station was very old. It was actually small. It only had 2 pumps. This is one of our master lift stations where most of the sanitary sewer in that area flows from maybe 2 or 3 other sanitary sewer lift stations into this one as a master station. So if you look at the picture up here, the red box that's at the very top left-hand corner is where the actual lift station is. Part of this project was to purchase the house that was next door to it, which has already been demolished, so that we can build the new lift station in that site, put a facade up and make it so that it doesn't cause any blight in the neighborhood, and then also increase that capacity that we have. We'll also be building what's called a grinder lift station, which is down in the cul-de-sac at the bottom left-hand of the screen, that will make it so that we don't have any sort of overflows in the houses that are in that cul-de-sac. So they'll feed into the grinder station. The grinder station will then feed up into the master lift station, and it will be able to take all the existing capacity plus potentially any new capacity that might be in that area. The budget for it was about $1.5 million. Clearwater Solutions is our partner on this. They've already begun doing all of the electrical as well as the bore of the pipe that goes from the cul-de-sac up to the lift station. So they're anticipating they're about 6% complete, and they're looking to be completed with the whole entire project in January of 2026. Our water meter replacements. We've been talking about this one for an awful long time. 36,000 water meters that we undertook about 2 years ago to replace all 36,000 of them in the entire community. Big undertaking, a lot of anxiety that we had, lots of small little issues that we had, but I'm proud to say that at this point we have 1,900 meters left to be replaced. We're looking to be complete completed with those by the 30th of July, and be completed with that whole entire switch out of every meter that we've got, everything from the residential to the commercial meters as well. The benefit that we're getting out of this is we're actually being able to show what our true consumptive use is, and we're billing the correct amount of water.
Excuse me, Mr. Parrish, can we please make sure everybody in the audience has their cell phones on silence? Thank you.
So the accuracy of the meters is increased, so we know the water that's actually coming out of the plants is matching the amount of water that we're billing to the consumers. It's also another piece for our consumptive use permit where the St. John's Water Management District says, hey, y'all are doing the processes that y'all need to do, and we trust that the amount of water that you're withdrawing and that we're allowing you to withdraw is accurate. That's one of those pieces that they have to ensure that that the amount of water we don't show as much loss of water between those two, so they're very happy with that. I actually speak with St. John's every month about this project. They're very interested to see what our numbers are. So it's extremely important for us. We're about 95% complete. Total budget for installation on this was about $1.9 million, and like I said, we should be completed by the 30th of this month. So, kind of the theme of what we're showing is we've got a lot of projects that are going on. Some are in various stages of being completed. Some of them are brand new. Some of them we're closing up. There's always projects that we're going through in different iterations, and these projects take a lot of time and also a lot of planning to make sure that we don't disrupt the public as we're going through these. We're 95% completed on our meter installs, but that's not the end of the project. The next project is the advanced metering infrastructure, the tower network that we talked about, where we go from those automated meter readers that we have now, where we replace the meters and the technicians have to drive through the neighborhood and get the readings, so they're no longer hand typing them in, they're actually going to them through automatic meter reading. But that's reactive. We don't know what the number is until that month of water use has already happened. So the AMI network makes it so that it's real time. There's a series of 16 towers in the area where they ping every single water meter, and it tells us within the hour how much water has been used. So that's the next phase for the water meter project. So we finish one part up and we start the next phase of it. So this project here, we're about 5% complete because most of the work on this is not done by city staff. Our partner with Ferguson and Senate, they do all of the work. They're the ones that are going out and they're getting all of the towers and making sure that we have correct coverage for all of the water meters out there. And they've assured us that by the 30th of September that our network will be up and running. So we will have all of them pinging at the same time instead of then even having a meter reader having to even drive around the entire city to get the number. So that moves us from a reactive world of we don't know what's going on until that meter is ready to be read for the bill to every hour we know what's going on with it. So whenever somebody has a leak, there's reporting that spits out that says, hey, for the last 24 hours, you've had continuous usage. So it allows us to be proactive with the residents to say, hey, these are issues that you may be experiencing at your individual residence. So that one's a major milestone for us to go through on the water meter side. Lift stations for SCADA. Approximately 2 years ago, we started and we were approved to upgrade our infrastructure at our lift stations. We have 55 lift stations out there, and those lift stations, the sanitary sewer comes from the home through gravity to a lift station. That lift station then pumps the sanitary sewer to the wastewater treatment plant. These lift stations, up until this project 2 years ago, whenever there was any sort of issue with the station, it was about a 27-minute response before that alarm made it to the on-call person. What would happen is these 55 stations, if there was an issue, it was going around and it was polling every single one of those 55 stations. So by the time it got around to it, it may be 27 minutes. This project that we started 2 years ago took it from 27 minutes to real time. So now whenever there's any sort of issue, as soon as a pump comes on, we can actually see it on SCADA. When there's an alarm, when there's a high level, whenever that there's any sort of issue with it, it's all in real time. We started it about 2 years ago. Currently we have 3 stations that are left, and there are 3 stations that are very, very low flow. We kind of prioritize these, of course, master lift stations first, schools second, high flow areas third, and then, other ones. So we have 3 lift stations remaining. They do about 1 lift station per week. So we should be completed with this by the 30th of June. About $822,000 of investment, about $34,000 remaining. And what this does is it keeps us from having any sort of public health issues, from having any sort of overflow from sanitary sewers. So amazing project. As that one is finishing up, the next one is SCADA for the water plants and the wastewater plants. So as you can see, we kind of keep the ball rolling, but we split it up so that we see advantages and return on our investment before the complete end of the project. The SCADA system-wide upgrade, as I said, is for the water and wastewater plants. We've spent about 4 to 5 years speccing this out as far as looking at every single what's called I/O for the plants, every single pump, motor, PLC, so that it's very complex and very robust, so that the bid that we received on it, they can actually do the work with the constraints and the contract that we have. It basically replaces all the communication at the water and the wastewater plants. So not only are we more responsive, reactive, and able to make sure that what's going on in the plants is appropriate for our inputs, but it also increases our security, making sure that no one else has access through any sort of malfeasance or anything outside of our network of being able to access ours as well. There's been, in the past couple years, there's been a couple of utilities that have had some issues with that. That's part of what this does too. It closes any sort of issues, gives us better portability and the usage that we're doing and what our operators are doing each day. This is a big project. We don't expect to see the completion of this until about June of next year. It's about $3.3 million of a project as well. But a lot of, like I said, thought and planning that goes into this. Some of our projects, we may be going through them 6-7 years in advance and getting them in front of you so that we can get that infrastructure in place before we see any actual growth. You've got to have the infrastructure in place before we have anything. So it's these projects that we're making sure the city is prepared for if we have any sort of need for it down the road 6-7 years. We look at some of our planning outlook 25 years in advance. I know it's really hard to kind of look and judge what's going on 25 years from now in the utility and in public works, but those are some of the visions that we look for to make sure that that infrastructure is in place and that you're able to make the wise decisions that you do before we get to those points. So that's all of the presentation that I have. We may have some expansions that we have on some of the public works side, but once we wrap that up, I'd be happy to answer any questions for you.
Good evening, Mayor, Commissioners. I wanted to add something that Jim was talking about, the meters, the new meters. In the end, the third phase of that will be a portal for the customers to go in and look at their water usage real time. We got to get the communication network up first before we can actually implement that. So should be start implementing around the first of the year, January. And I am really proud of getting these meters finally done. It's been a long road, and Jim is right. In the beginning, there was a lot of we were thinking a lot of issues, but it's actually turned out very well. We assigned an employee to that project. That's pretty much all he did, and Dale has been able to keep us out of trouble with that project. We've had very minimal complaints, throughout the process. So I just wanted to let you all know that, and I know that we've talked about that customer portal, for quite a while. Once all this is done, also we'll be able to go in there. We have to add some more features, but we'll be able to go in there and it'll actually send a customer a text or an email, hey, you got high water usage for the last 24 hours or so. So it's going to be a really big improvement.
I'm going to go back a little bit since I went through my stuff at lightning speed for everybody. The stormwater projects, I want to let you know that we have all the materials on order or already in stock ready to implement. These projects will include piping, structures, maybe a catch basin, an outfall structure of some type. The one over there, Dorchester and Tulsa, we're going to reestablish the pond itself that you'll see kind of in the center there. We've already got a preliminary permit determination that we don't need any additional approval from the district, but we'll finalize that. But we're going to reestablish those banks and hopefully get a little bit more volume over there and tie that into some of the other work that we've already done in the area as far as emergency piping and getting that buried in the ground. Menzie. Forgot to tell you, ours should be here, our physical piece of equipment that you all graciously purchased for us for stormwater should be here at the end of September, first part of October. We already have one staff member who is going down for training, and then before we get it, and then shortly thereafter we'll be sending more staff members down to be trained with the Menzie folks on the proper operations. I by no means know how to use this. I'm sure that some of these younger technical people that do the gaming and stuff, it should be really easy for them to undertake that, but we want to make sure that they understand how to use the equipment, that they're safe, our residents are safe, and that we use it to its best ability, and we will continue to use the contractor until we get to that point that, we can take over everything that's being done out there so that we can keep up with everything. Once again, we talked a little bit about the sandbags. I think this is going to be a great improvement for the city. Also maybe affords us to set up sandbags, distribution places throughout the city at other locations, depending upon the need and where we think a storm might hit us. And we do have some pretty good ideas with the way Mother Nature has her historical impacts to Deltona. We kind of can pinpoint some of those areas. Once again, the milling and restriping, it's a long list. By no means does it cover all of our roads. We have nearly 500 miles of roadway in Deltona. A lot of those roads are from the 60s and 70s, and I can tell you that's old because I was born in the 60s, so some of these roads are very, very old. And once again, we try to be as cost beneficial as we can in looking overall, looking at a globally, where are we and what roads can we do from an economy of scales that let's not remobilize them in a year from now if they're going to be on a list right now. And once again, sidewalks. For those that aren't familiar, the city originally had a plan to put sidewalks within a half mile, then a mile, then 2 miles of all of our school systems. Prior commissions have had us deviate from that, so we already have done half a mile, and I believe we've already got them within 1 mile. And so now what we're looking on is that connectivity, if you will. Where do we have some of those missing links that it makes sense to bring those in? And also looking at some of the areas that we're getting some calls regarding speeding and other concerns with residents, and how do we maximize the money that's allocated for us? Once again, the budget of $250,000 does not do a whole lot of sidewalk installation, and we also have repairs and replacements that we have to undertake as well. And Any questions that I can address now, or
Yes.
things I need to look into and get back with you?
Commissioner Avila Vasquez, then Commissioner Lally, then Commissioner Kowal, then Commissioner Harrington.
Thank you, Mayor. Let me find, I have questions for Jim and I have questions for Phyllis. Phyllis, on the flooding projects, the Elkham, I've read the reports and stuff at home, and the Elkham Boulevard, Lake Helen, I read that the city is working together with the county, coming up to resolve the flooding on those areas. And I know that I forget how much it costs us to bring in a person to, reevaluate all that. Is the county throwing in something into those funds, or is it just the city paying for it?
At this point, the county has been a partner with talking with us about this. Originally, we thought this might be just a strictly an in-house type project. We've since determined it's not an in-house project. It's going to have to be designed, engineered, and permitted. That's a cost of about, I want to say it was $50,000, give or take, for our quote in our task authorization. I still think that the county should participate. This is Lake Helen Osteen Road is their road.
That's
Canvas
the reason
hours.
why I'm asking you.
But of course, as you know, the phone calls don't go to the county when there's a little event, and there was one there, I think it was last Friday, actually. I was at the Publix, and I went around and I was like, oh, there's a whole lot of water standing at this intersection. I did go back an hour later, and it was gone. So the area does perk very well. We just need to find a means and a method in which to get it, whether it's down to Lake Foy or down to some other structures, or maybe we need to look at having a retention pond maybe on Elkham somewhere. So.
My other question is still with the flooding projects. I didn't see any plans for Lake Leeson, which causes a lot of the flooding in that neighborhood in District 3. Or did I miss something that was part of the projects that you mentioned?
No, Lake Gleason has never come up with homes that were flooded. We do have control of the outfall of Lake Gleason. That is one of our basins of the 4 that we have control over. So water does flow from Lake Gleason through some other areas, some wetlands, and then eventually gets to Lake Monroe. Doesn't mean that there isn't nuisance flooding in that area, but the homes have never been impacted. To the best of my knowledge, I have no record of any homes having been impacted.
So it's just these projects that we're working on are only projects that affects the homes? Because I know that when we had the last hurricane, I went around driving looking for Lake Leeson Park, and I couldn't find it, because the only thing I could see was the top metal of the swings.
Right.
Because it was flooded.
Yes, I understand that the lake rises up and the water will get on the properties, and it does impact the rear of the properties, and including our park itself. But we did not have any actual flooding of structures out there. The homes themselves were not impacted. We had a lot of impacts with the roadways where we have water that ponds out there, and those would be areas that we can look into. But once again, with the funding that we have to we look at them as, are we having home flooding, which is a high priority? We don't want homes to flood. Is this really considered nuisance flooding, which if it's in your yard or in your driveway or out on your street, it's more than a nuisance, and we understand that.
Right, and I'm bringing it up because even though their homes were not affected, because the water never reached into their driveway or their garage, but they were somewhat affected because their cars were small and they couldn't drive out.
Right.
Because the street was flooded, the driveway was flooded, and if they drove their car out, the car was going to be flooded. And it's like a cul-de-sac that I'm referring to. I forget the name of that road.
I know which one you're speaking of, and we just did a partial project down there. I can see the cul-de-sac and
right, and it has like a little run on the side that leads into the lake, and I know that the people that live on that
Eleanor?
lake,
Maybe it's Eleanor?
yeah, I think it is.
Yeah.
The people that live next to that the side were blocking the runoff, so I don't know if that was the cause of a lot of the flooding, but there is a lot of issues going on there because they're sort of like an island.
Yes, ma'am.
Bordered by lake on 3 sides. So I needed to bring that up. That's the stormwater projects, of course. I saw that Clover Leaf was worked on as far as the stormwater projects, and so was Lake Gleason. But this last hurricane, they're still flooding. So is that going to be looked into after the fact during these
We can
projects?
certainly put it on the list and see what options we have available. This
Okay,
week.
and I'm just going through my questions. Also Lombardi, as I mentioned, I think in one of the previous commission meetings, there is a lot of flooding there caused on the right-of-ways. I don't know, and lately, the last time it did go on the road, so if we could take a look at that one as well. It's just that I'm surprised there's nothing listed for District 3, so I feel like the stepchild here.
Well, that certainly was not the intention, and
Yeah,
I can go back through our master stormwater list, because a lot of these projects are listed there, and it's part of the master list of $50 million.
So, and then on the stormwater funding, it shows that 3.5 million was for improvement, and it was going to, or was used to request for report for residential and commercial properties, the benefits from this grant. Did we use funds for residential and commercial properties from that 3.5 million, or is that something that you're looking into?
Which grant was that, ma'am? I'm sorry.
It's under stormwater funding.
I'd have to look into that.
Okay.
I'm drawing a blank on which grant that might have been.
Okay, because if it was used for residential and commercial, I would like to get a report of the residential and the commercial properties that were the funds were used for. And my last question for Phyllis is hazard mitigation grant program. I know that it says that, and you mentioned it today, about applications that were submitted, and there was a mention of 7 applications submitted on behalf of private property owners, and it was a mix of our housing department, other nonprofit organizations, and stuff like that. These 7 applications, these are home properties in Deltona that were fixed with those funds?
They are applications that we submitted on behalf of property owners. 2 were individual applications, and then the other ones were bundled up for a total of 7 residential properties that could benefit, whether it was going to be a home elevation, an acquisition, demolition, and rebuild, or a total demolition and acquisition, and those homeowners take their money and move somewhere else to build a home, or maybe find a property.
So these are homes that had no other cost but to get torn down, or?
Yeah, these were homes that were, have repetitive loss that we've documented, not necessarily through FEMA and the repetitive loss, because not everybody carries flood insurance. If they don't own their home, they don't have to carry insurance, and there won't be a repetitive loss history there, but we do know one over on Tulsa, we know one on Riverhead, we know one, I'm just drawing a blank on the other ones, but these were homes that had repetitive loss. Some of them had just gotten their homes repaired from Ian and just finished up, and Milton hit them, and they were back starting over again.
Okay, thank you, Phyllis. That was it for you. Thank you so much. You guys always do a great job. I have a question for Jim. I know that one of the questions Glenn came up and answered, which was the software for residents to check in on their own. But
Yes.
you said it's coming, right?
Yes.
Because a lot of residents have been asking me, is that available right now? Did the city purchase the software yet? So I'm glad that you answered that question.
Yeah, no, we have not purchased that yet. Like I said, that, and as Glenn alluded to, that's going to be phase 3 of the project. You have to make sure that all of the meters can be read first, so we get the meters replaced, then you get the network up, and then the portal can activate on all of those 36,500 meters. That is a very small portion of the project, and it's a very minute part of the total overall cost of it as well. It's not even a cost that is over any of the threshold that we have even without coming to the commission for.
Once
It's a
all
very
these
minuscule
meters,
amount.
once all these meters are installed, that means that everyone is going to get their bill at the same time? It's not going to be cut off like it is right now?
Well, they won't, we will shrink down the amount of what they call them books. We have a lot of different books, which are different areas of the city. We will reduce the number of books dramatically, so there will be more consistency throughout, but it won't be all at the same time. As you could imagine, getting out 36,000 bills in 1 week to everybody and then having nothing to do for the rest of the month makes it so that it's very, very chaotic to get all of that done. But you can split it up into 4 or 5 books, have things a little bit more cohesive and a little bit better streamlined process. So we will be reducing them down a dramatic amount, but they all won't be at one time. But they'll be more consistent, though.
The other question I have is, I'm guessing it's a lift station, again, District 3, behind the old fire station. I didn't hear anything mentioned about that one. Is that
Behind the old fire station.
on Lombardi, off Lombardi? Is there any work being done on that, or is
There's not a lift station. Oh, you're talking about the water plant?
Yes.
Yeah, there's a water plant there. There's water plant 5 and 6 there, upper and lower Lombardi. Those are constantly being monitored. They monitor them every single day. There was an issue with upper Lombardi, and that's one of those wells that we're actually taking out of service, which is closer to the Blue Springs Basin, and replacing it with like the wells that I spoke of earlier, 42 and 43. So we're going to decommission that well, but we're still using well number 6, which is down and a little bit further down. But we're not having any sort of issues with any water quality or anything at those wells.
are we going to use, when you close it down, are we going to have any water pressure problems on that area?
No, ma'am. We have all of our water in the entire system is a looped system, meaning that all of the pipes are interconnected throughout the 12 water plants that we have, so that if you do have one water plant or 2 water plants go down in the system, they all back each other up and make sure that the water pressure is maintained in the area. So we won't have any issues with any sort of water pressure.
Thank you, appreciate your call.
Commissioner Lally?
For me or for Phil?
Thank you, Mayor. I think it's Phyllis.
Okay.
Thanks. Appreciate you. I think flooding and stormwater issues are, in like the top 3 issues that we hear from constituents, at least on my end, that and land use. I wanted to ask about Cortlandt Park because, we've had conversations with them, and we have this issue of this, I'm not going to use the S word today, okay? Well, let's go. We have a body of water that has no outfall in it, and so, as we know, it stages up, and I think this is sort of along Commissioner Villa-Vasquez's point as well. This water stages up, and in that particular case, that's a new community, and their recreational area is flooded out, and then their mailbox area is flooded out, and the rest of the story. What could we possibly do for that instance? I know we've talked about trying to move that water toward Lake Hutchinson before. Is there anything that we can do to solve that issue? Because I know there's a lot of, and we've all experienced stormwater challenges in our new developments, but this is one where it's not just, water that sits in a dry pond when it shouldn't. This has actually risen up and maybe not flooded homes yet, but gone into some of the community's assets.
Well, as you know, and I'm assuming everybody does, there's some issues with their ponds. They do not function as designed, engineered, and permitted. We've tried to work with the engineer of record. That firm has been bought out, so we're kind of at a disadvantage now with the folks that we kind of started those conversations with. I don't even believe the engineer of record is with the new firm, but regardless, we are drafting up a letter to send to the district to put the district on notice with them to see if at that point then we can start forcing a little more proactive involvement by the engineer of record and the developer and see where that goes. The design still is the only one that we think is a viable option is to take that pond that you're talking about that is behind their the tot lot in the mailbox area and go down to the south to Lake Hutchinson. Actually, it would connect first into a pond that they have on the other side of the trail, and then eventually discharges to Lake Hutchinson.
Okay, so I guess we'd say we're in the middle of the process of trying to identify a solution, we could say.
Yes, sir.
Okay, great. I thought the sandbag changes were great. I think moving the location's probably good, because I think when a hurricane's coming, where it was before in my district, you had sort of this confluence of sandbag traffic, the gas station traffic now, and then the people going to get their bread and milk, or, at the grocery store. So I think that central location's better. And I guess you said, too, you might be able to target it based on the needs as well, right?
Yeah, very similar to what we did in prior events. We took like a couple of pallets out there with maybe about 300 sandbags. We had somebody monitor it, because we know we need to document that they are going to city residents in order to validate our reimbursement to FEMA. But I think we have that opportunity because we can get them prepared in advance. We don't have a place in which to store them right now, but if we prepare them now, hopefully, let me rephrase that. I'm hoping we prepare them and we don't need them, and we just throw some tarps over them so that they'll be safe for the next year. That's my plan. But we can certainly stage some in different areas. I think we did over off of Riverhead one time. We did do the setup over there on Day Road where folks could come and do the sandbagging, but we can find some different locations. Yes.
Great. We have, as everyone knows, hurricane season June 1st. Do you think we're positioned better now than we have been in the past few years? On the topic of the Menzie, we have the new pumping station near my house, Fort Smith and Monument. You think we're better positioned and continuing to improve in the hopes that we reduce some of our incidences of flooding?
I think we're better positioned, certainly. We never know what the impact is going to be from a storm. Unfortunately, Ian, Nicole, and Milton seem to focus in the same general area. That doesn't mean that the next storm isn't going to go hit somewhere else, where, yes, we probably have seen some issues, but we haven't seen them in recent years. But some of the activities that we've undertaken as far as getting these emergency pipes in the ground, that certainly frees up your staff. They're monitoring everything out there. We do have control of the 3 basins, not the Teresa Basin as far as the outfall. We are working on an application for an emergency field authorization in advance of the storm. It's a little difficult to document that now and demonstrate that because the lakes are coming down. They haven't come down, I think, to the satisfaction of some of the residents that live on the lakes, because they do have a heightened sense of insecurity that any little bit of rain, something might happen. And, that's a fair position for them to be in. But we're doing everything that we can. We are as ready as we can be. We have pre-positioned some of our vendors for pumps that we might need, materials we might need, whether it's one of our pipe vendors, whether it's one of our pump vendors. We've already started our conversations with them. All of our equipment is being serviced right now, so we should be able to, if we have an event, we know where we're going to deploy equipment and get that set out there, and our fleet department is taking great care of all of our equipment. So I think we're better than we were. I can't say that we won't have any issues, because if I told you that, that would just be disingenuous.
24 inches of rain or whatever Ian was will give us some surprises.
Yes.
Final question on the topic of the road resurfacing. When we looked at your list and then the money that's allocated for it, hopefully this makes sense. Are there roads that were not on that list that have a PCI that would necessitate resurfacing and there's just not enough money?
Yes, there are.
Okay.
And of course, we always know that some roads start to deteriorate. The PCI was done in 2018. We'd like to get that redone as well to see where we are. But we also address roads, some of the roads that you've brought to our attention. Some of our commissioners have brought some roads, and we get out there, we take a look at it. If it's something we can do the repair, because we do have equipment and the ability to do that, we will do so. But if there's something that needs to rise to that list, then that's what we'll do. So.
Okay, thank you. I really appreciate the updates. Great job, guys and girls.
Commissioner Caldwell?
Yeah, while we're on the subject of flooding, the Blue Heron Lake, there's some homes that we're going to purchase around that area. Are they on both sides of Fort Smith Road or just on the one side?
We've not purchased any homes in that area since I've been with the city.
Is that what we're looking to purchase?
Might be referring to at the bottom of the hill also. Originally, there was a few homes,
There were a couple homes that the residents.
bottom Hampton Oaks.
Yeah, that they,
Isn't that where Rose
But
lives?
currently over at Fort Smith, there were 2 homes that were flooded.
there were 2 homes that were flooded.
Yes.
They did want to make application through hazard mitigation, but once that transferred over to the Division of Emergency Management in Tallahassee for Elevate Florida, they decided it was too complicated of a process for them. As I said, the downside to that change is there's no advocate, whether from the city standpoint, one of our consultants, or people that are very familiar with the programs and how to present an application for the most opportunity of a positive outcome.
When that area flooded, did it flood across the road also?
Across Fort Smith,
Fort
yes,
Smith,
sir.
yes.
Mhm.
Are we looking into resolving that issue?
Yes, that's part of the projects that I mentioned, the Blue Heron part, Drysdale Park. We're looking at the Drysdale Pond that is behind those homes to see if we can expand that pond in any way and get a little bit more capacity. We've also put in the emergency piping so that we can turn the pumps on and we don't have to worry about running pipe and then turning the pump on.
There was some concerns about the 2 developments that were built up on the hill above that. Do you feel that that contributed to the flooding in that area? And had it been resolved? I understand there were some pond issues.
I think you're speaking about Lake Baton and then Hampton Oaks.
Hampton Oaks, yes.
Hampton Oaks, we do know that their ponds also are not functioning as designed, engineered, and permitted. And we're, once again, similar with Cortlandt Park, just not quite as far in the process with either one to try to get some compliance. Once again, we're working on a draft letter that'll come from the city to the district advising them of the problems that we have. There has been some improvements that were approved by the city of Deltona and staff that are no longer here that we can't quantify the volume of water that is being taken from the area down to Blue Heron Park and then further downstream to Drysdale and to the ponds on Elkham because they're underdrain systems, exfiltration system type things, and we can't quantify that volume. But if you go to some of the structures, the water is flowing all the time, and the ponds right now might be dry, and you're like, that's water that's continually flowing.
On the Twin Lakes, we're talking about putting a pump in there in the Twin Lakes. Is that the one that's in the development, the HOA development?
Yes, it is, sir.
And which basin is that a part of?
That is part of the Gleason Basin.
Gleason Basin.
Yeah.
And is there flooding upstream? I know Commissioner Vasquez mentioned that there was in Gleason Park and stuff, there was flooding, rising water levels around the lake there. Is that the only lake that is affected by that basin?
Right. There is no discharge from the city of Deltona into Sweet Gum, and I forget where the other lake is in Twin Lakes. I apologize. But we were thinking to be able to harvest some of the water to augment the rapid infiltration basin for reclaimed, is if we could put a pump there, comes through our property, goes to an existing pump station for stormwater, and then we can take it up there. It wasn't intended as a private development improvement. It would just be an intended consequence of that is they may benefit and not have some of the flooding that they've had in the past.
On the sidewalks, we're dedicating $416,000 to sidewalk, new sidewalks or sidewalk replacements also.
New sidewalks and sidewalk replacements.
Are we addressing the issue with the residents that are driving over the sidewalks and breaking them? I think I sent a picture to Doc with a semi-truck parked in the backyard on several occasions. And I know there's several sidewalks out there that are busted out. Are we spending the tax dollars money to pay that, to replace those, or are we going after the residents for this?
If we can document when we're called out to look at something, whether it's called out to us, we see it, however we find out about it, if we can document that somebody has driven over that and we can have evidence to that, we are trying to work very closely with code compliance to make make it become a code case so that then we can recoup our money.
Well, code compliance answer to me always is if we don't physically see them do it, then we can't hold them responsible. When there's a camper sitting right on the other side of the sidewalk, how'd they get it there?
Right.
Or a semi-truck.
I think we can, as Public Works and traffic operations and field operations, we see things maybe a little bit differently, and we're going to push the envelope because you're absolutely right. Our citizens should not have to be paying for the repairs to sidewalks because somebody is driving over them without the benefit of a secondary driveway or some type of formally approved means of ingress and egress.
I know we talked about a mid-pump station several times on the Teresa Basin. Are we on hold on that because of the Teresa Basin study? Or should we be preemptive and moving forward on some type of pumping? I'm sure we're all convinced that would definitely solve some of the issues.
Yeah, we're still working with Adura, who's doing the Teresa Basin study for us. We're still looking at different opportunities on where we might be able to find some funding for that as well.
That's all I have. Thank you. Oh, I have one more question for the water department, real quick. Go ahead.
I'm sorry, pardon me. I did want to remind everybody that through Transform 386, before the second submittals that we just did last week, there was an interim submittal that we did, but that was strictly for basin studies. And of course, we were awarded $900,000, approximately $300,000 for each of the 3 basins. So the county is taking the lead on that. On behalf of us, we've given them our scope of work and what our end product is, and we're looking for a very similar product, not quite the extent that the Teresa Basin is, because they're not as big, but similar to what we're doing for the Teresa Basin study.
Jim, real quick.
Yes, Commissioner.
The expected completion date of Phase 3 of the water meter replacement, what is the expected timeframe of that?
We're expected to be done right around the same amount of time of whenever Phase 2 ends, which is that AMI portion, which should be somewhere around the September 30th, October 1, somewhere right around that time frame. As I said, that's a very minuscule portion of the project, and they're saying that getting it implemented, the largest hurdle that we have is just getting staff trained on how we can train our end users on it. It's really something that they're going to be working on after the next 2 to 3 months. Once we get further into Phase 2, we'll then get with them and give them authorization for Phase 3 so that all of that kind of rolls together around the September 30th, October 1 date.
So our expectation is to be completed by the end of the year?
Yes, end of the fiscal year, yes.
Right. Thank you.
One last thing that I just wanted to kind of build upon, and I don't mean to be speaking for Phyllis, but one of the things that we've spoke about in the past regarding the Adura study is one of the things whenever we try to get permitted things such as the mid-basin study or mid-basin pump station done is that there's modeling done. And before we can go before a governing body like the St. John's Water Management District, they're going to want to see some of those modeling numbers. So the ability for us to get things approved through some of those bodies helps greatly whenever we do have that information from Adura. So things like the mid-basin pump station going to be more likely to get approved once we have the information from the study.
All right.
So,
thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioner Howington.
Thank you. I'll make this one kind of quick. The Fort Smith home that floods frequently, the one that used to be owned by the city, has there been any discussion on the city potentially taking that back, given that it was purchased because it was a flooding home? They had intended to demolish it, and then it ended up back in the hands of a private owner. And now it floods fairly frequently, and the poor people who live there are frequently dealing with that.
I am familiar with the information. I was not here when that happened.
Right, it was a while ago.
Yeah, I think there was a terminology, it was used as a Katrina home when Katrina hit in New Orleans, that some folks came down and were able to stay there. So, I mean, I'd have to look into the history on that, who the grant came from, what the conditions of the grant were, and see if there's anything that can be done to mitigate that, and if possible, possibly purchase them outright.
Okay. And then the bond for Hampton Oaks, are we still holding that, or have we released that? Because I know that they're done building the homes now.
We have a partial bond for Phase Two. Yes.
Okay, so they've received some back.
Yes.
Do we have any sort of idea as to where those ponds stand as far as the repair work?
We don't, because the contractor has not been forthcoming in telling us what they're doing. That's part of the problem, unfortunately.
That's, yeah, and that's outside of our control. So other than that, thank you, Glenn. Thank you, Jim. Thank you, Phyllis, for everything that you've done. This listing has been something that we've asked for a couple months, and it's really important for the residents to be able to see this information. So thank you for putting it together. Thank you for bringing it to us. And thank you for just kind of shedding the light on what is actually happening. Stormwater and utilities are so important, and that is a huge focus for us. So I really appreciate it. Thank you so much. And that's all I have. Thank you.
I got like 4 or 5 questions. Can we make sure we just all get the list of the roads and sidewalks again, please?
Absolutely.
If possible. This might be a Jim question. What's going to happen once Phase 3 is accomplished to the actual people, the meter readers?
Okay, so
Because I hate for us to have them out of a job because we
no,
replace them with
absolutely not.
technology.
So there's different maintenance items that have to be done that all fall around the meters. And one of the things that we've spoke about and that y'all have approved for us are those residential dual check backflows. Remember the ones that we said where we don't want that happening? That is the next phase for the meter technicians. Once all of this is in place, they no longer have to read meters. They're going to be going to all the individual homes, and they're going to be putting in those residential dual check backflows. So we're able to utilize staff in a different manner to be more proactive. I'm all about being proactive, and that's one of the things that our staff is moving greater towards, is being more proactive instead of reactive. So those meter techs are still going to be in high demand for us to make sure that the residents are served well.
Great. The station on Fort Smith and Monument, I know it was something was asked about it. I'm sorry, I was trying to get more water. Did we figure that out? Because I know the last couple of the storms, it's flooded or it's been underwater, or there's been an issue. I know we've had issues putting some type of portable generator there. Are we doing anything to fix it? Or?
We've replaced everything out there, so
It's done.
we are good to go. Yes.
We're good to go.
We're good to go.
Does that one have its own generator now? I mean, I hate for a certain
Does
issue.
not have its generator, but we have the ability to basically run one out there, plug it in without any difficulty. Even I think I can do that as long as I can back straight in.
Cool.
If I have to turn around a lot, we're out of luck.
Is it too much, though, and I don't mean to interrupt you, is it too much to ask for future stations? Can we not get those things integrated into the stations? I mean...
Like a permanent generator?
Yeah, like where it's for that specific station.
With the applications we just made for HMGP, originally for our pump stations, we proposed putting in permanent generators. In that program, that's not a very well-received thing, so that's why we did the bypass pump.
Because it's common sense?
Well, I don't know the reason, but it just doesn't seem to, it doesn't pass the muster, if you will, and we wanted to at least have some benefit, and a bypass pump does provide that as well, so.
I'm looking at staff going out there in the middle of the storm, because I've been one of those that sleep here too, and it's dangerous. There's things flying around. The last thing we need is for certain winds to get down to a certain level, so they're actually out there trying to get out, and they're struggling to put a generator in there, and it's a risk factor. Then you have residents that have to worry about if sewage or whatever is going into their house. If we can figure out a very constructive way, I don't know if 365 can be one of those things, to maybe start implementing them for stormwater, for hurricanes, for whatever. I think that's the way to go.
Okay.
Mayor, if I may, I'm sorry.
Yeah, please. Yeah.
You know, I like
I missed
to
your
talk.
face, by the way.
I like to talk. Y'all know that. Everybody here knows that. But We're putting something in the budget for next year for SCADA for the stormwater pump stations also. So we'll be able to sit at EOC like we do here with the utility. We'll be able to monitor the levels. We'll be able to turn pumps on and off. We'll be able to turn, generators are automatically going to come on. The permanent generators will automatically come on. So we're trying to be proactive with the storms to make sure that we get stuff staged out ahead of time. And some of the bypass pumps that Phyllis was talking about, those will be going on those pump stations. They'll be set up with SCADA. They will have float system in there, or transducers for the levels, and they will automatically come on if the station starts rising. Doesn't matter if the power goes off or not, those pumps will come on. So we're looking at different things that you like lift stations. And Jim was talking earlier about Waycross lift station number 7. We're putting 2 fail-safes there, a generator and a permanent bypass pump. So we have the capability of going back and putting these bypass pumps in, because a lot of times when you get an electrical storm, what happens is in the electrical panel, something can get hit in there. And phase monitor or anything like that cause the power to be out. Well, even if you have a generator on and it comes on, it's not going to pump because there's something in that panel. With the bypass pumps, it'll come on and run no matter if you got electricity or not, because it has the 24-volt system backing it up for the SCADA. So, sorry.
To add to that question, and this might be a silly question, but forgive me because I don't know the answer to it, right? Are we having scheduled testing of the stations just to make sure that by the time a hurricane does, right, prepare for the worst, or however the saying goes, so by the time a hurricane does come, we're not caught by surprise that, oh, look, the station's not working.
Yeah. Stations are exercised on a regular basis, and there is somebody at I can speak specifically for the pump stations for stormwater, there's somebody at those stations, maybe not every day, but that is their entire job, is to go out there and make sure things are working accordingly. So.
And I know that Fisher Plant is always a top. Go ahead, Jim.
Excuse me, Mr. Mayor. On the utility side, because the utilities have to function 24 hours, 7 days a week, 365, they are storm ready every single day. We take all precautions to make sure that they are running, they are functioning, they're monitored through 24/7 SCADA, and then also they're also visited 3 days a week, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, every single week to physically put eyes on everything to make sure that all of those lift stations are in good physical shape. The water plants are visited every single day. There's a minimum amount of time that we have to spend at every water plant, and the wastewater plants are monitored minimum 16 hours a day. So there's someone that's actually on site there from 6 a.m. and until all of the shifts are over. So there's a lot of precautionary work that goes into the utility side to make sure that whenever there is a storm that comes, that we have proper amount of chemicals, we've got proper fuel for the generators, that everything is taken care of, and we do that day in and day out. There's a few small things that we do whenever we know that there's a storm that's imminent, but we do take precautions, as a normal day for those utility stations.
So the big elephant in the room is the Fisher Plant, right? Mm-hmm. Planning for the best, preparing for the worst. If we were to get hit with 2 storms like the last 2 we've had, how would the Fisher Plant fare?
Well, when Hurricane Ian came through, I was physically on site at the Fisher Plant, and the Fisher Plant functioned with no issues, other than we have 3 pumps there that we call our master pump station, that after all of the flow goes through the treatment processes and it is held in that pond, it moves from the pond to the rib site. The only issue that we had during Hurricane Ian is that we couldn't get the water out of the pond fast enough. We could process it through the plant fast enough, even with 24 inches of rain in 24 hours. We couldn't get it out of the pond fast enough. So now what we've got, and the reason we found was there was actually Turtles, that because of the amount of flow that was coming through Turtles, we're actually in the foot valves of the pump. So we have screening on the intake structure now, so that's been avoided, so that mitigates that. We also have gone through all the pumps. One of the pumps we're waiting to come back right now so that we've had them all serviced before storm season gets here. The ability for Fisher to process the water, I don't think is more of an issue of where can we put the water. That's the issue that we really have at hand, of saying once we have all of this flow that's coming through the sanitary sewer system, what do we do with the reclaim? Because no one's taking reclaim. It's easier whenever you take all that flow and you disperse it throughout the entire city, but if no one is turning their irrigation systems on because there's no need for the water, and the rain sensor says, hey, don't let the irrigation system come on, then our only recourse at that point is to put it to the rib site. And once the rib site gets inundated and they're not perking anymore because of the groundwater level, we then have to have another place to put it, which we do. We have backup strategies with Volusia County to be able to send it to some of their spots. Coming up in the near future, as we propose more of the rehab of Fisher, is also with effluent disposal, which is one of the things that FDP requires that we have, is enough wet weather discharge. Currently, we do have enough wet weather discharge, but in extreme cases, we have to be able to manage that well. So as far as if we had two back-to-back storms, if we had two back-to-back storms of Ian, we're all we're all doomed. But throughout time, throughout history, we haven't had much issue yet.
Sorry. The other thing is we can manipulate valves with the lift stations and send more flow out to the eastern. If we had a problem at Fisher, we can send it out there, or vice versa. Some of the stuff from eastern can come to Fisher. Since we've made that latest upgrade expansion, it gives us more room at the eastern. And then once we get these upgrades done, the advanced waste treatment for Fisher, it's going to make a big difference there too.
Have we figured out some of the roads by Fisher, by I think what's the Normac, that's in District 3? That area, regardless of how many inches of rain we get, it tends to literally flood out, not necessarily the houses, but those streets, and they get pretty deep.
Where is this?
By where the other lift station is, close to the former mayor's house, that whole road down
Nordello?
Nordello, I'm sorry, I called it Normac. By Nordello. That whole neighborhood, those couple of blocks, they flood pretty bad. Have we figured something?
Yes, because most of that water will go down to the Nardello pump station, which we have next to the former mayor's house.
Mm-hmm.
And then south of that, I think it's Oslo and a couple other streets, they were inundated as well because that drainage retention area on Nardello, it filled up. So that was one of the areas that we actually buried all the piping. It was also one of the areas where a resident thought it would be appropriate to go and destroy what we had above ground on not once, but 2 different occasions. So hopefully now we can send that out. We're interconnected with the county on Doyle Road. As long as they have the capacity to take it, we can send water that way as well.
So there is a plan there already,
Yeah.
right?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Okay. Last question is, have we reached out to the county? I've been literally talking about this. I probably till I'm blue in my face. About getting sewer from low water to where the Crunch Fitness Plaza is. There's that little strip there, and I know we've talked about, even when the former city manager was here, the interim, and I don't mean Glenn, because he's looking at me, I mean Mr. Chisholm. We talked about if we go a certain route, it's going to cost the city a lot of money, but if we are able to go through the county CRA, we might be able to get the county to put that portion of sewer in and use some of their CRA funds. Have we reached out to the county at all to see if we can get that ball rolling rolling?
I believe, and I'll have to double check, I believe our finance department has been looking into that along with our economic development director, about what is that agreement, what does that CRA say as far as the use of for sanitary sewer and other infrastructure out there.
Because I believe that would help with our economic development along with stormwater situations and other stuff, because that corner right there has had some standing water issues as well, specifically by what, I think it's a church, right? Is that a church in that corner? It used to be a bank.
Yes. Yeah, you kind of have those missing links, if you will,
It's a
along
medical
Deltona Boulevard.
thing now.
It's a medical thing?
Yeah. Now, are you talking about CRA funds from the county? Because
From the
our
county, not the
CRA
city.
funds cannot be used for...
For the county?
Our city CRA funds,
No, I'm talking
I was
about
told, cannot be used for sewer.
Yes, ma'am, that is my understanding, but I think they're working with the county, or at least trying to start some dialogue with the county to maybe change that so that we can use it for that.
Okay, that's, I think that's all the questions I personally had. Is there any public comment on this portion of the? No, sir. No. All right, we're going to go ahead and move over to moratorium. And we have a discussion on the floor to try to bring in a moratorium. And Commissioner Howington read what her requests were. So Commissioner Howington, did you want to start the conversation?
Sure. I still want to make the motion if the commission deems that as something that they would like to move forward with. There has been discussion about SB 180, and you're correct, it has not gone to the governor yet, so we don't know what he's going to do. However, the reason that I feel that we need to move forward with this is because right now we're being inundated with applications. We were going to discuss this at the prior meeting that ended up being canceled. And right now we are in a precarious position because we don't know what's going to happen in Tallahassee. We are in the process of working on our impact fees as well as looking at land use and other things like that. So right now, adding a temporary moratorium based on the fact that we are working on bringing our infrastructure up to better standards. We just sat here and listened to all the flooding problems we have, all of the infrastructure problems that we have, and these things are being worked on, but it takes time. And I just heard a lot of projects that are going to be completed within about the next 6 months to a year. So the proposal for a temporary moratorium kind of puts that pause on projects. I believe there were 23 to 26 that have been itemized as ones that a moratorium would not apply to, that are already going through the process. So this kind of puts a pause on anything new coming at us. It gives our planning department a chance to catch their breath, kind of get their feet under them and start to move forward with improvements and not just continually dealing with the new development that keeps getting thrown at us. So with the moratorium that I've put together, it does not impact commercial development. I specifically excluded commercial, industrial, and business because we recognize that those are things that we need in this community. So the intent here is not to impact any commercial, business, industrial that's wishing to come into the community. Is simply to ensure that we have our ducks in a row as a community and we can provide the infrastructure necessary for these new residents as we bring in these new homes. So I can provide additional information as to my intent, but you guys have had a chance to kind of read it over and see what I would like to propose. After talking to the attorneys, if 180 does pass as of July 1st, given the fact that Volusia County is a home rule county, we potentially have future opportunities with a moratorium that could be challenged against Tallahassee taking away home rule from us. And so, if this is in place beforehand, we could potentially look at partnering with other communities that have moratoriums in place today that also reside within home rule counties. One being, I believe, Edgewater has a moratorium in place right now. So there are probably others across the state as well. If SB 180 does not pass, then we're still in the same situation where this gives us the opportunity to still continue to move forward, get our infrastructure situations under control, make sure that new development is paying their fair share towards the infrastructure that we need to support those homes. Looking at the rates that we're charging our fire service, I mean, $123 for 1,000 square foot, that is just outrageous. How can we sustain adding new services for new residents if a house is only paying less than $200 to bring on fire services to service that one home? So I'm pleading with people, I'm hearing the residents, they're asking for this, they're asking for us to take a pause, take a breath, get the infrastructure under control. And one of those areas that's been neglected is the impact fees. Given the fact that we do have an RFP out there now, we are in the process of moving forward. This gives us the opportunity to complete that process. And given that it's temporary and has the two conditions, once the impact fees come before us, whether we accept, deny, whatever we so choose to do, we can at least move forward for the community knowing that we have taken the right precautions to ensure our infrastructure is in place and can be sustainable in the future.
Done?
So, yes.
Commissioner Colwell, then Commissioner Villa-Vasquez.
If we were able to bring this to the commission, what is the time frame that we could do that? I know next month's meeting is quite packed. Could we get it on next month's meeting? Do we need a consensus to get that?
It was, hold on, this next meeting was already an agenda item to discuss, but it may be moot if you're discussing it now, so talk about the ordinance itself.
Yeah, so just to step back, so you all are permitted under your rules at the workshop to give direction to the city attorney and city manager to do things, right? To draft ordinances, to prepare things, to bring them back for official action. So you all can give us direction to do that. It does seem like the larger goal, though, is to pass this before July 1st, which is when, if SB 180 is not vetoed, it goes into effect, so July 1st. So I think that's the goal, to position ourselves, Commissioner Harrington, correct me if I'm wrong, to position ourselves.
That's correct.
Okay, so the way...
Just a point of order really quick. I don't mean to interrupt you. And obviously, you're the attorney. I'm not. But I keep hearing, and I want to make sure we're not putting out misinformation, because we had our county chair telling everybody that June 1st, this moratorium was going to take place, or not the moratorium, but SB 180 was going to take place, and it didn't. What the governor has, 10 days after he receives the bill to veto the bill. So until he receives it, it could be after July 1st. And I know we have to, under the state constitution, they have to pass a budget by a certain time.
Okay, so I'm certainly not an expert on this, and I was just looking at this while you all were in your other discussion. But my understanding, and correct me if I'm wrong, is that the session just closed June 6th. And according to the bill tracking, it was given to the governor, I believe, already. And there is that little flow chart, right, that they put out. So when he gets it, he can sign it, he can veto it, or if it goes without signature, it goes to the Secretary of State.
It becomes law.
And then it becomes effective either on the 60th day after adjournment with, I'm going to butcher this, sign D, where it's not restarted. It's not, we're going to restart on July 1st or something, or on a specified date, or upon the governor's signature. The bill specifies that it goes into effect on July 1st. So if no action is taken at this point, it would go into effect on July 1st, or upon his signature, or he could veto it, and then it would go back, and it would go 2/3 vote in each house to override the veto. So in that little flow chart, there are two paths that it could become law and still a path for veto. But my understanding is that he has it, just he hasn't taken action. He hasn't vetoed, he hasn't signed. And so it's in the, but there is still a path forward. Whether he vetoes or signs, there's still a path forward for it. And it would be an effective July 1st.
Wasn't it presented to him a while back, and he needed to sign it by 2 Fridays ago, midnight? And then it goes into the 60-day effect?
I'm not prepared to answer that. I'm happy to get you an answer on that. I just am looking at bill tracking, like literally in real time during this meeting. So I would need to get you an answer on that.
I can tell you, Commissioner Cole, as of last week, I reached out to one of his aides, and they had still not received that bill. That's the only reason I was trying, because I was trying to give some friendly advice to our county council or our county chair that maybe we shouldn't put dates until we know when he receives it. So to be fair, I don't know this whole week that's gone by, I had a death in the family. I don't know if he's received it or not, but I know it's a certain amount of time after he receives the bill that he has to act on it.
According to the news, he already had it, he had to sign it by midnight. I believe it was 2 Fridays ago, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay.
I would need to get back to you on the impact of SB 180. One thing I do want to flag about SB 180, so in the packet that went out for last week's meeting, I'm not sure, obviously you don't have it in front of you, but in the packet, Jordan prepared 2 very comprehensive staff memorandums, and so I just wanted to flag a few things about SB 180. It would apply statewide. It would not allow us to make any new local rules from August 1st, 2024 to October 1st, 2027 with respect to land development or permitting that's more restrictive or difficult than before. It would block moratorium, so it would say that local governments such as Deltona could not pause, block construction or redevelopment of hurricane damaged properties during this time, and it would make the moratorium effectively apply statewide because it would be retroactive to August 1st, 2024, and it would find that any local rule that's passed since August 1st, 2024 that violates this new law is considered invalid from the start. Now, that's all sort of background. The key sort of relevant point that I want to make is that there is a section of, yeah, there's weird feedback. I hear it too, and I don't want to be screaming in your ear. Yeah, I hear it too. I just don't want to, if I'm going to blast your ear out, just tell me.
It's fine, I can hear it.
Okay, I just don't want to hurt your ear. So the key is that in the bill itself, so it's just in case anyone's following along at home, it's page 47 of the text of the bill. It's lines 1346 through on that page through 1363, and then on the next page, 48, it's lines 1364 to 1372. A resident or owner of a business in a county or municipality like Deltona can bring a civil action for declaratory or injunctive relief against the city if we are in violation of Senate Bill 180. So to Commissioner Howington's point, certainly we are a municipality in a charter county. We can elect to challenge statute if that is a direction of the commission. However, what I suspect is more likely to happen is that someone would bring an action under SB 180. We could respond, and we would figure out a litigation strategy at that time. But the point I want to just really point out in this section of the bill is that if they win, if we don't win, if the city loses, the resident or business owner is entitled to reasonable attorney's fees and costs. So that's always the hammer that they put to get. It's what they did with when they were trying to deter public camping, right? That was the kicker to get everyone to fall in line and draft our new ordinances. If someone brings an action and wins, you have to pay their attorney's fees and costs. And I would say that the most likely litigant, based on our other people that have brought cases against us of late, would likely be a developer. And so they would have significant attorney's fees and costs if they win. So I just wanted to flag that for you. Now, there is an out under this section, which is subsection B of this section. Attorney's fees and costs and damages may not be awarded if they give us written notice that our proposed or enacted moratorium, in this case, is in violation of this section of Senate Bill 180, and then we withdrew it within 14 days, or notice an intent to repeal within 14 days after receipt of the notice, and repeal the moratorium. So I will say this. If you all elect to give us direction to draft this ordinance, and the ordinance moves forward, and Senate Bill 180 passes, and someone brings an action, you then would have another bite at the apple if someone sues us to say, okay, it's been a month, it's percolated, we've gotten other reports, we've talked to other cities, we can still withdraw. So we're not going to necessarily, this noose there's a way to get out of this noose is all I'm saying. There is a noose, but you can elect to get out of the noose if someone throws it over our neck. The other thing I want to flag is, in order to make this July 1st deadline, it would be relatively tight, and we've gone back, we did the math. So for it to pass, it's an ordinance, so it needs 2 readings, and they have to be noticed 10 days out. So we would have to put the advertisement for the ordinance, and we only have to advertise the ordinance by title, which we can do because the title of the ordinance is relatively simple. By tomorrow, we would place the ad tomorrow. It would run Thursday. We would need to hold a meeting on the 23rd and the 30th, and planning and zoning would need to hold a meeting. Now, technically, they don't have to, but we recommend it because we recognize there may be a challenge, and so we just want to make sure that every I and T is dotted and crossed. So we would recommend that planning and zoning also hold a meeting on the 23rd before your meeting. So we would have them ideally meet first on the 23rd, then you all would meet, and then you'd meet again on the 30th. So that would be the path forward to pass it by July 1st. There is enough time to do all these things, but it is tight, and certainly we would need to have a quorum at both those meetings. Again, there's a little flexibility on planning and zoning. Like if we couldn't get a quorum, it could still move forward without them, but we would prefer for it to go to them and for them to approve it before it went to you all for your vote.
So it sounds like what you're saying is, worst case scenario, if 180 passes, we can back out of our moratorium.
Yes, yes. You can back out of your moratorium anytime, whether 180 passes or not. If 180 passes and we do a moratorium and someone sues us under 180, we would then still have 14 days to say we intend to repeal our ordinance and notice the repeal. That is my point. Yeah, we could back out if that is what happened.
So what do we need to do from here then, I guess?
Still got Commissioner Villa-Vasquez, Commissioner Arlington, then Commissioner Lowell.
Thank you, Mayor. Well, that was one of my questions, where do we go from here? But I just want to say that this is not the first time this topic has come up here at this dais. There was a motion on a workshop made for this moratorium to take place. Just like a lot of other things that happens in the city, it falls between the cracks, and it never came to a city commission for approval. So this is not the first time. It was approved in a workshop, and I think it was with the prior commission. But since then, we have changed so much city managers that everything seemed to have fallen between the cracks. So I just want to let people know that prior commissioners were in favor of this moratorium. We got beat up. We got by, developers and stuff like that. But it never got a chance to actually go through the whole process, come to the commission for an official approval. So like Commissioner Stevens says, where do we go from here? What's our next? And another thing I want to say, there is nothing in writing says that you cannot make a motion in a workshop. There's been many times that we have made motions during a workshop. So I don't know where this idea or this thing comes that we cannot make a motion in a workshop. If it's an emergency, if it's emergency like you say it is, we can make a motion as long as everybody's in approves that the motion can be made. So there is nowhere that says that we cannot make a motion during a workshop.
You certainly can make a motion
Thank
during
you.
the workshop. Just to be clear, you can make a motion, like I said, you can make a motion to have an item be put on the agenda at a regular or special meeting. You can make a motion to give direction to the city attorney or the city manager and tell us, we're your charter officer, so you can give us direction at any point. And I will tell you, to your point, I think you're right. I think when there's a lot of turnover, it's hard to move the ball. I mean, you know, we're at the 26th ordinance of the year, which is wild since we're in June. That's an insane amount of ordinances to have passed in a 6-month period. This commission has done an incredible job. But I just want to say to Doc and the staff and my team, we've been cranking, and we certainly intend to keep delivering. But you're absolutely right. When you have stability in staff, you can move things forward. I mean, candidly, we just laid you out a path to pass a moratorium in today's the 9th, in 21 days. So we can do great things, and we feel fortunate to have such a competent manager and great staff that he has brought. But to your point, Commissioner, we're happy to, if the commission directs us, the city attorney's office, I don't want to speak for Doc, but I'm sure the city manager's office would direct his staff to work with us to get that done timely.
Just a point of clarification, Commissioner Avila-Vasquez, I think what we're saying is not that we can't do a motion, we can't vote on things.
It has been done before.
We can't vote on stuff unless we advertise them. Is that not correct? We can have a motion to put it on the agenda, and it gets properly advertised, and then we can vote on it, but we can't vote on stuff that's not advertised unless there's an emergency, and even then, we still have to give a 48-hour notice.
That's
You're the attorney, you tell me,
Yeah,
because
okay.
that's the way we were told from a prior attorney, so.
That's a lot of things. I'm going to say a couple things. One, state law and the guidelines, the operating guidelines and meeting rules and procedures for the Deltona City Commission are different. So under state law, you certainly can add anything to an agenda if the meeting has been properly noticed. So there's a number of attorney general opinions and cases on point that say as long as a meeting is noticed where the public has said a meeting might occur by this body, that's enough notice for the public to know that anything that's in your purview, including, I mean, anything really, accepting a grant, saying, yeah, we're going to build a new city hall, whatever it is, you have the right to add that to the agenda and vote, because that notice is sufficient that you might take action on anything. So you would need to have a majority of people vote to add it to the agenda, and then you need to vote to approve it. But you can, even if it hasn't been noticed, you can add things, you can vote on them at a regular meeting. Now I'm going to pivot.
That's what I was saying, not at a workshop.
Correct. So I'm going to pivot. Workshops.
Guys, I can hear you all the way over here.
Again, there's a little latitude under state law because workshops are public meetings. However, this is when the Deltona City Commission guidelines come in, right? So this is where the local rule kicks in. You have a local rule under the operating guidelines and meeting rules of procedure. This is the one revised 3/2023. So this is the current operative document. You have a section on regular meetings, and you have a section on special meetings, and a section on workshop meetings. And it does specify that they may, I'll just say that for items, it doesn't say whether you can add or subtract items. But state law says you can, so you can add items, that's fine. With respect to votes, no official action can be taken according to your guidelines, except to recommend items to be considered at a regular or special meeting, or to give direction to the city attorney or city manager, which is action, right? I mean, you can give us direction to go do a thing. And like I'm telling you with this thing, this ordinance, we still bring it back to you for a vote. I mean, it has to be noticed. You get to vote on it twice, and planning and zoning will get to vote on it as well. So you can give us direction. You can tell us to take action. But those are, just so you know, those are your guidelines, that's not the state law. So your guidelines are a little more restrictive, but you certainly can give either of us direction.
Finish, Commissioner Avila. Vasquez.
So where do we go from here? What's the next step on this?
I mean, if it's the will of this body, Commissioner Howington, I believe, has...
Can make a motion
to make the motion.
give direction.
That's right. And the way she has it worded, I would say is right, except I would say instead of city staff, say city manager, because you can direct him and you can direct us to go forward and draft this and then hold the public hearing, as in we would schedule it. And I am telling you those dates, so you need to make sure, if this is your intent to do this, please make sure you all have a quorum and you can be here to vote on those days. The 23rd, June 23rd, and the 30th. I know Planning and Zoning is not here, but we'll call them after this meeting and see if they can come the 23rd. We have a budget meeting scheduled for the 23rd, that's correct. So you all already are on the docket, but we would like to get Planning and Zoning here before you. But then the 30th, that's an important date as well. So that would be the second reading. And what our intent would be is the ad that we run tomorrow would have all three dates. So it would say Planning and Zoning, the 23rd at 4 o'clock, and then special meeting, 23rd at whatever time o'clock, and then the 30th special meeting at whatever time o'clock.
I just got confirmation the governor still hasn't received the bill. So.
Okay.
Are you done, Commissioner Avila Vasquez, so I can go to all right, Commissioner Howington, Commissioner Lully?
I was going to make the motion, but if
Go ahead.
Commissioner Lowley would like to speak before I do that, then I'd be happy to. No, go ahead. Okay. I move to direct the city manager and city attorneys to draft an ordinance, also notice the public hearing tomorrow to be published Thursday, and hold a public hearing regarding the authorization of a temporary moratorium on the issuance of development orders and development permits for development of townhomes, cluster homes, and multifamily residential dwelling units, residential development on lots less than 1 acre, residential development over 1 dwelling unit per acre on any property located within the city. The duration of the moratorium should be the shorter of and a date certain of 9 months or the time it takes the city commission to enact regulations regarding implementation of all impact fees and determine the impact of new residential development on transportation, police, EMS, and public safety, adequacy of public facilities, recreation and open space, accessibility for emergency and public service vehicular traffic, adequacy of drainage facilities, availability of public infrastructure, including general government facilities, roads, trails, sidewalks, solid waste, stormwater, water, and wastewater. The moratorium ordinance should also provide for exemptions, waivers, and appeals as required by law, and the public notice should be for meetings on June 23rd and 30th.
It's a motion by Commissioner Howington. There's a second.
Can I just ask, June 23rd and 30th, ideally, assuming we can get a quorum. If not, we will be flexible and figure it out. You could just add that.
Yes,
Very
I
good.
agree to that. Would you agree to that on the second?
Who made the second? Commissioner Caldwell.
Yes.
And that's to give direction, so. Commissioner Lully, did you want to speak?
Yeah, thank you. Let me turn these off so PIO doesn't get mad at me. Because last time I left it on when I was talking to Phyllis, and then they turned me off because it was too much. I think that the whole intent here, and thank you for bringing this, Commissioner Howington, and the rest of the commission for talking about openly and sharing your thoughts. It sounds like your goal here is to increase our impact fees to what is sustainable for this city. And I was down in Southwest Florida last week, and that's why I was going to Zoom into the commission meeting that didn't happen. And when I looked at some of what was going on down there, I mean, it was pretty shocking, the difference in the impact fee schedule down there compared to here. And And in like an unincorporated Collier County, which, you know, an unincorporated county, you'd expect less services than a city. But this is not even inclusive of water, wastewater, or fire. Okay, so take those three out of it. Their impact fees for a house like mine here in Deltona is almost $32,000, and that's before you even account for the fire, which their fire in that particular fire district, it was 94 cents a square foot, which was, I think, more than 6 times what it is in Deltona. And so it just seems to me, you know, that maybe historically, and maybe as a result of so much turnover in staff, we've relied more on the existing residents to carry the burden as the new developments have come in. So I'm really pleased to see this, and I think we gotta get closer to those numbers I'm seeing down south, because there's a reason why they're unincorporated county and they have these fire stations that are, I mean, absolutely state of the art. And this isn't a knock at our great firefighters, but you know, we have stations in my district where the water's leaking. They were meant as temporary stations, and they're have become permanent now for 2 decades. So I think it's well past time for us to do a harder look at this and make sure that new development is paying its fair share. Because I think when I looked at what our current fire is in this city, I mean, every new house that's built, I mean, you're not even really paying a week's salary for a firefighter. So it's really not addressing those needs. And of course, we've seen some initial discussions and conversations about going to budget season about those needs, whether it's new fire stations in districts or replacement stations. And so I think this is a really serious issue, and I certainly would love to see this moratorium lifted as soon as possible, but not a single day before those impact fees are addressed. So thank you.
Is there any public comment?
Commissioner, just want to clarify, Commissioner Howington, when you say residential development, just for staff, you're talking about development projects, not an individual house? Just want to clarify if someone's going to build a single house
That was
on a lot.
actually going to be a question I had.
So someone building a house on their lot can't build there? Okay, just want to clarify. Thank you.
So how do we even manage infill? They have individual property rights. So if somebody buys an infill, I mean, the city doesn't even have a say over an infill. That was a question.
Your question is, would this apply to infill?
Yeah.
I mean, that's candidly, we would need to talk with Jordan. We can try to get him on the phone and ask him.
It's not necessary. It's coming to a commission meeting for
We can
discussion
definitely
and
have an
voting.
answer before it comes back to you, and if you want, we can, again, Jordan's not here, but we can work with him to make sure
Please.
that he adds it to his memorandum, and we can just talk with him. So your question is, would this apply to infill lots?
Would this apply to infill lots? That's correct.
Don't they have to come in for a permit anyway and follow?
Yeah, but that's all staff. That's not before the commission.
But doesn't staff have rules that they need to follow in
Correct,
order
but-
to approve a permit for something and then go back and make sure that procedures were being followed?
Correct, but if we have a moratorium and it includes, because it says here, a house under 1 acre, I mean, most of the infills around here are quarter-acre lots. It would essentially apply to an infill as well, so they wouldn't be able to get a permit.
Just for clarification, the intent was to gear this towards residential because it's the residential that's using the fire services, using the law enforcement, using the parks, using the roads. So that was the intent. It was not to focus on the commercial and the business and the industrial. It's to focus on specifically the development that is impacting our infrastructure significantly.
Right, but when they're talking about infill, they're talking about
Right.
piece of property that is owned by someone and somebody's building a house there.
Well, if they already have the application, then this should not apply, correct?
So, yes, according to Jordan's memo from last week's meeting, there are 23 projects that are in process. This would not apply to any of those projects. They would be exempt. Jordan has advised that infill is your decision, and you can give direction if you would like it or not. We could exclude infill lots. He's not here, but I don't think we have that many left. I think most of the infill lots have been. We got a lot. Oh, we have a lot. Oh, okay, well, it's up to you.
And I'm sorry, I don't want everybody to get out of focus because we still have to go by the law here. I just don't want us to start, we're not talking about a developer now. Now we're talking about an individual who has an individual lot, and we're individually violating their property rights.
No, we're not, because it falls under the same rules that she's trying to make about the fees, the impact fees. They still have to pay impact fees just like everybody else who's building a house anywhere else. Am I correct or am I wrong?
Yeah, but individuals have never been treated, a person has never been treated the same as a developer.
We could definitely consider adding a clause in there for infill lots. This is directing them to come back with something, and we always ask for options, so that can be an option that can be offered.
Okay.
If the will of the commission is to exclude infill lots, then I don't see an issue with that.
Commissioner Caldwell, you're up, then Commissioner Lally.
With all that being said, I believe on next month, or next week's agenda, don't we have the, to change the undersized infill lots for approval? Is that?
Correct, that's a consideration for the next
As we're
agenda.
going through this process here, should we remove that from the agenda? Do we need to get consensus for that?
It could, staff will discuss in the morning where you want to go with that.
Okay.
And also,
Do we need consensus to remove that, or?
no.
We can do it the day of the meeting, right, under additions and deletions.
No, it's a project commission, wasn't requested by the commission, so we could take that off.
Okay.
And hold it, yes.
All right.
Commissioner, are you done, Commissioner Lally?
Thank you, Mayor. A couple points I just wanted to make. In Edgewater, their moratorium currently within the Florida Shores Drainage Basin includes infill of new single-family homes in any area that is decreasing impervious land within the area that it covers. And theirs isn't citywide. Theirs is, I think, a little more targeted. So I think that from a legal perspective, and I understand where the conversation is going, I think we're covered. But I absolutely think, I don't think we should reduce it down and remove infill, new single-family residential. And I'll tell you why. In my case, I bought a house here, new construction, infill, in 2021. This was not a Deltonian who, and I understand that there's case-by-case basis, and there are Deltonians who would, be building and living there. My house was built by a guy from Orlando. He comes in, there's many houses around our city, buys our infill lots for $12,000, which is pennies on the dollar, and the reason why they're so low is because the impact fees are low. And so you're able to come in cheap, turns around, sells his house. I was left with 2 busted windows and 2 sliding glass doors on my $325,000 house that didn't open, but he's gone back to Orlando, and he's really, taken us to the cleaners here. He paid I think my impact fees on my house were, don't quote me, but it's something like $8,000 to $10,000, I mean, nothing, so that he can turn around, sell it for cheap, make a lot of money off of Deltona. So I feel very strongly that we should include the infill on the moratorium. And I just think we got to do it. And that's, I think, the impetus to be expeditious with the impact fees, because we can't be down in $8,000-$10,000 for these brand new massive houses like mine. We got to be closer to what other places in Florida are doing, because they're seeing the benefit of that to their existing residents and getting better services, particularly on the public safety front. So, thank you.
All right, did you say we have any public comments? Okay, so, go ahead.
It wasn't on the agenda, so I didn't fill out the form. My apologies.
Hey, Tara D'Erico. So love the conversation because it's long overdue. Maybe a different way with the infill lots is if if it's someone a developer who's buying it to sell it, that's one thing to make a profit. But if it's a private resident who's buying that lot to build their family home that they're going to live in and occupy, maybe there could just be a different scale, right? The developers maybe have to pay one scale, and then someone who's going to occupy, and then maybe we can look into if they sell that within 5 years, they've got to somehow offset that a little bit. But if someone's going to maybe build something with the intention of living there for 20, 25 years, maybe we could look at that a little differently. That's just a thought. I don't know if it could be done, but just wanted to bring it up. Thanks.
All right, can you?
Mayor, if I may, just one thought. We could build a process into the ordinance, and this is something we would recommend anyway, and we probably would have put in, for a waiver, so that an individual applicant could come before you all and have a public hearing to request a waiver of the moratorium for
Commissioner
their property.
Howington has a waiver thing in here, so.
Yes. So that would be an exception, and I will say that Jordan has advised that we don't get a lot of infill applications. I understand we have a lot of lots, but apparently we don't get a lot of applications for it. We get some, certainly, but we don't get a ton, so he just wanted me to flag that. So that would be something you could, if you wanted infill, you could.
Okay, can we
consider
do a roll call, please, Liz, to bring this to the commission?
Commissioner Avila Vasquez,
Yes.
Commissioner Caldwell,
Yes.
Commissioner Howington,
Yes.
Commissioner Lally,
Yes.
Mayor Villa.
Yes. All right, at this time, we're going to go ahead and, city manager comments?
Just real quick, there was one of the items, the CRA, we talked about earlier, there are 3 grants that we're still waiting to hear from the federal government, state government. One is for sewer up and down the CRA area. We haven't received a positive or negative on that, and 2 state grants. One is for an injection well for up to $2.5 million with a match to push water into our rib section, or rib site a lot quicker into the aquifer, as well as another one for the mid-basin, about $750,000 for the engineering and planning, so that we could pull water from the mid-basin into the rib site. So there's still 3 grants out there we're hoping to hear in the next few weeks as government's closing up feds and state levels. Hopefully we have some good news in the near future. Thank you.
Okay, meeting's adjourned.